this was in Grafton. My impression wasn't there very much. If physically there, I wasn't internally there, and the rest of the time I was away in university or Sydney or whatever. But at 9, 10, he was always making things. He was always had some interest. And the kite making, that's it. I remember that him trying. He wanted to make a kite, so he sort of seemed to start from scratch and work it all out himself, and how you could make it fly, what sort of way you varied it to make it fly better. Well, he'd be able to tell you all this, but it was just it was very impressive how he'd go at it from nothing. He'd just get the idea he wanted to do it, and so he'd set off and explore and experiment. One thing about Rick was that he was never bored. He'd always have something he'd be keen to do.
He would be only a cub there. I remember a Carla, that's what they call it, the lady in charge.
Yeah.
He was having great trouble wetting the bed for some years, at that age, early, 9 or 8 or something. And he was afraid he couldn't go to the camp. And I told her, Carla, no, why he wouldn't be going. She said, "Oh, you tell him I was the same." His age. I'll wake him up at 10 o'clock and get him out. And that's what they did. And he had a lovely time at camp. But this dear girl, she knew what to say.
Yeah.
And he trusted her, so, and that solved the problem.
The picture of him up the tree reminds me of Mrs. Alexander, who was the wife of he was the editor of Who's Who in Australia. She was our next door neighbour and rang Mum one day, most alarmed that Rick was right at the top of some tall tree. Did Mum know? I also remember we played buses in a walnut tree up the back of the orchard. He bounced up and down on the fence joining the Alexanders and used the branches for, maybe Rick remembers being bus driver and bus conductor and passengers. Memories of Wagga. I seem to remember that we had a visiting cleric who was a bit sort of prim and proper. He may well have had, I think, some rather perfect daughters. Anyway, he was visiting, and we couldn't stop Rick getting out his tennis racket and singing "My Old Man's a Dustman." We were a little bit... it wasn't quite appropriate. The picture of him up the tree is a small boy, and you look at him and think, well, how on earth did he get down? But I think it must have just been after we just got to Grafton, because he looks quite young there, but yeah, they were there quite a few years.
There he is climbing another tree. I think that's
the jacaranda.
That's the jacaranda in our garden in Grafton, yes, which is a big tree.
Oh yes, that's typical.
I don't remember him being up on the roof, but I'm not surprised to see him there.
Yeah, I think that's a photograph taken by Sue, but she might remember.
Yes, I don't suppose. I did know he was up there. I couldn't let him out of my sight. He wasn't safe. And I was all the time chasing him to find out where he was, quickly behind him. And I remember saying, I can't stay at my work long enough. I have to, if I'm hanging clothes on the line, I have to stop halfway and go across to the wood heap and pick up chips or something. I couldn't stay at one thing one day. I was so used to having to go to keep him alive. I said, I'm having a breakdown without the breakdown. I was absolutely flat out keeping up with him. When he was, that was about when he could walk from 2, when he started running, from 2 till about 6 or 7. I was chasing him. Those are the days.
And there's Big Brother and Little Brother. It must have been on holiday. That's not the Clarence Bank. No, that must be... Could have been down at Yamba. We sometimes went down to Yamba, which was probably the...
There were two different memories of Rick in Grafton when he was younger, and then when I came back at a later stage. When he was younger, his bedroom was rather inaccessible, but I do remember he had I'm pretty certain it was a signed photo of Richie Benno, in his room, which I coveted very